Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. The United Nations has once again clarified that the meeting with the Taliban on 30th of June and the 1st of July, that is going to be the third of a series of meeting that is known as the Doha format meeting, is not going to be about normalization, legitimization or the recognition. The United Nations Political Affairs Chief, Rosemary DiCarlo, has said, let me quote her, "This is not a meeting about recognition. This is not a meeting to lead to recognition. This isn't about the Taliban. This is about Afghanistan and the people," unquote. Also earlier we saw Special Representative of the Secretary General in Afghanistan, Rosa Otunbaya, while briefing the United Nations Security Council, said, let me quote her, "It cannot be repeated enough that this sort of engagement is not legitimization or normalization," unquote. Now, the Afghan Taliban have announced that they are going to participate in this particular meeting. As I have already mentioned, this is the third in the series. Already in the first meeting, the Afghan Taliban were not invited at all. In the second meeting, they were invited, but they refused to participate. Now, also, there has been criticism as per various media reports as to why women issues and security issues are not going to be on the agenda of this particular third Doha format meeting. There has been a response by Rosemary DiCarlo regarding as to why women issues are not going to be there and what she is expecting out of this particular meeting. We'll be taking the analysis on that also. Also, after Afghanistan's Taliban's announcement that they are going to participate in this particular meeting, Pakistan's permanent representative to the United Nations, Mr. Munir Akram, called on the United Nations Security Council to take a decisive action against terrorism in neighboring Afghanistan. He's also emphasized the Afghanistan's goal of socio-economic development cannot be achieved while terrorist organizations like Band Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and ISK remain active. We'll also be talking about that particular urgency, repeated calls, especially when we talk about the absolute red line for Pakistan, the Band Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, and the role of international community in that particular regard. Given the fact that there have been multiple the United Nations reports pointing to the fact to the active collaboration between Band Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and IS Khorasan province also. In another major development, we have seen the United States has once again expressed its support for Pakistan's counter-terrorism operations. While during his briefing, the U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller has said, let me quote, "Pakistani people have suffered tremendously from terrorist attacks. No country should have to suffer such acts of terror." And the U.S. partnership with Pakistan on security issues included high-level counter-terrorism dialogue, including funding robust counter-terrorism capacity building programs and supporting a series of U.S.-Pakistan military-to-military engagements, unquote. What could be expected from this particular third meeting of the Doha format, and what is expected from the Afghan Taliban, and how this particular meeting is going to be different this time around as compared to the previous two meetings. Also, we'll be taking the analysis regarding as to what could be expected when the US repeatedly talks about its unconditional support to Pakistan in countering the menace of terrorism is concerned. All that are for discussion in today's show. For that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Umar Khan Ali Sherzai, his former ambassador. Mr. Sherzai, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Also, in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik, senior analyst. Mr. Malik, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Yasir Janjua, his security analyst. Mr. Janjua, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Mr. Sherzai, now this time the Afghan Taliban have announced to participate. In the first, they were not invited. In the second, they were invited, but they refused to participate. This time around, they have decided to participate in this meeting. Do you see any specific or a particular reason as to the different decision this time the Afghan Taliban have made of participating in this meeting?
Thank you very much. I think the Taliban have realized that it is really not possible to remain in isolation. and they are trying their best to be a part of the international community. And I think a better sense has prevailed that they decided to participate in this meeting. I think it is a good gesture, and I hope its result would be somewhat positive.
Result would be somewhat positive. Last time around, when we talk about the second meeting of the Doha format, they were invited, but they refused to participate in that particular meeting with the condition that they would be the sole representative to be recognized in that meeting from Afghanistan, which was, of course, rejected by the UN at that particular time. So have they backed away from that particular condition they had already set forth for the UN?
Well, frankly speaking, having seen the history of the Taliban, they would never go back on what they have said.
Okay.
So, but it is politics, so they have realized that it is better to do something rather than to remain absolutely isolated. But what I feel is that for the international community, that on the one hand you are asking them to do this and that, and the human, the women issues, and the other issues, and the terrorism issues. And on the other hand, you are not recognizing them as a legitimate government. So, my own opinion is that it would have been better if the UN should decide that the recognition of the Taliban government, which is a reality now for over almost 3 years, and that the Taliban are running their government very well. A lot of development activities are underway in Afghanistan. And I personally feel that their economy is doing much better than our economy.
Okay.
So, keeping in view all these factors, I think it would not harm anybody if the Afghan Taliban government is recognized and they are provided with legitimacy, and they are allowed to do trade and other exchanges with the international community.
Your point is well taken. It remains to be a sticking point as far as the recognition of the Afghan Taliban as the legitimate authority over there since the takeover back in 2021 is concerned. And you're of the view that international recognition should come first, and then there should be a call for those expectations to be met, what the international community asks the Taliban to do. Let me bring in Mr. Malik on this point into the discussion. Mr. Malik, firstly, the very first question, how do you think this time around this particular meeting is going to be different with the participation of the Afghan Taliban as compared to the previous two meetings already held, in which the second one, the Afghan Taliban themselves refused to, with a condition that they would be considered as the sole representative of the Afghanistan, which was refused by the UN. In the first, they were not invited at all.
Well, I would take it as a silver lining. If we see the progress from the first to second and now the forthcoming meeting, I think both sides have shown a bit of flexibility, so to say, because the very harsh stand which was taken by Taliban and reciprocated by the international community, and that didn't yield any results, because after all, the engagement with international community through Doha forum, it's in the interest of the Afghan people, and it is in the interest of the region and generally peace at large as far as the world is concerned. So, this is a kind of ice melting, and it may set hopefully if the better sense prevails, as both sides have, you know, for the time being put aside the demands like recognition first, or the women right or human right violation, things like that on a side, and it's purely being considered on an engagement for the people of Afghanistan. So it is the kind of CBM in my reckoning, and I think it should, we must hope and pray that it brings some semblance of
ice
good
melting,
diplomatic-
a kind
ice
of
melting.
a confidence building measure as
Yeah.
per your understanding this particular engagement.
Exactly.
Let me take this particular point to Mr. Janjua. Mr. Janjua, what are your expectations this time around? Are you seeing different results as the outcome of this particular third meeting of the Doha format with the participation of the Afghan Taliban? Do we understand that the Afghan Taliban have backed away from earlier conditions they had set during the second meeting, which subsequently they refused to attend because the UN rejected the condition that they were asking to be recognized as the sole legitimate representative of Afghanistan in that meeting? Have they backed away from that particular condition? Mr. Janjua, can you kindly unmute yourself, please?
Come on the speakers. Can you hear me now?
Please go ahead, loud and clear, sir, now.
Okay. Jawad, I think there has been a realignment on both sides. First and foremost, it was very unwarranted and undiplomatic on the part of the international community and the United Nations not to invite the Afghan Taliban on the first meeting. And Afghan Taliban, obviously, they wanted to show their annoyance. That's why they wanted to make it a point that they wanted to be recognized as the sole representatives of the Afghan people in the second mood. And that's probably why they refused to attend the second mood when they were actually invited. So for this third one, both sides have realized that engagement is the only way, inclusionism is the only way for a dialogue to be successful. However, for us or anybody to think this third mood is going to bring some radical decisions, I don't think so. Diplomacy, as we all understand, is a very slow-moving process, and one should not expect any tangible results or any fruitful results from this meeting in itself. Although it's a road, it's on the long road to success that they have started, and it's good that the Afghan Taliban have realized, look, we need to go back to the international community and sit with them. And so should the international community realize that excluding Afghan Taliban will not really bring the solution to the people of Afghanistan that the international community thinks it can. As the AVM Ijaz Malik was also saying, I think they're doing a pretty good job in terms of their economy. Actually, they are doing better than Pakistani economy. If you ask me, a lot of Pakistanis on the border in the erstwhile FATA areas and from KPK, and even some people from Punjab, but mostly the Pathans, many of them actually are now going to Afghanistan to do labor work and to do work. So that means they're actually getting paid higher in Afghanistan. There's a lot of development work going on. So when that kind of activity is going on in Afghanistan, it would be counterproductive for the international community to leave Afghan Taliban outside the negotiation table. And I think this is a positive step. However, I don't think there's going to be any positive results that we think are going to come. Obviously, there is no recognition on the table. UN have very clearly said. So I think it's a good step in the right direction.
It's a good step in the right direction. Now, very often we get to hear this particular thing that the economy of Afghanistan is doing better. Also, they have claimed that the security situation within Afghanistan is better. If there is betterment on both the fronts in terms of security as well as in terms of betterment in economy, why were the Afghan Taliban reluctant to take back all those illegal immigrants who were based here in Pakistan when Pakistan decided to send them back? Mr. Janjua, can you hear me? If you can kindly remove the headphones, please, because we could hear you better the previous time without the headphones, please.
Right. if you don't mind repeating the question, but what I understood was
Get to whenever we are talking about the situation in Afghanistan now under the Taliban regime, the de facto authorities over there, they have also claimed that the situation in terms of security has improved over there. You have mentioned, Mr. Sherzai has mentioned that the economy of Afghanistan under them is doing better. If economy is doing better, security situation is improved, why did they object to Pakistan's decision of sending back all those illegal immigrants back to Afghanistan? They should have happily accepted those Afghan nationals back into Afghanistan.
they should have accepted those Afghan nationals back into Afghanistan. However, this issue is not as simple as we all can think about. Those illegal Afghans have probably been living in Pakistan for the last good about 4 decades now, or their generations have grown up in Pakistan being illegal. So the people themselves, if you ask them, the Afghanis, they probably don't want to go back to Afghanistan. And Taliban, they think it's an additional burden on them. They're already trying to set their house in order. And if millions of more Afghans come back to Afghanistan, they think there's a problem for them to manage. I don't see a logical reason for Afghans to refuse it. They shouldn't.
That human resource which could be beneficial for the overall system in Afghanistan with the security and economy improved over there under the Taliban. Wouldn't that be the case?
I mean, this is our way of thinking, and logically, yes. But the Afghan government or the Taliban do not look at it like this. So that's
why do they claim to have got the economy and security improved over there if they can't handle that in coming back of those illegal immigrants from Afghanistan, Pakistan, inside Afghanistan?
They probably think these illegal immigrants who are in Pakistan are good for nothing, and they probably may not add any value to their economy.
And they also mentioned one point, Mr. Janjua, that the people who have been based here in Afghanistan, in Pakistan illegally for years and years on, they are also not willing to go back to Afghanistan. Perhaps they have that very perception. They know the fact that the situation in Afghanistan is not that very good for them to relocate from Pakistan to Afghanistan. Isn't that the case?
The fact is that the Afghan economy is doing better than we thought, and much better than Pakistani economy, let's be honest. But for the people who have been immigrants or illegal immigrants in Pakistan, they see the Taliban government as an oppressive government. As you all know, beauty salons have been closed. The women have been restricted to work or to go out and study. So there are lots of those curbs that really put a forward-looking or a liberal Afghan not to think about going back to Afghanistan, even despite the fact economy might be doing better, but they say the curbs on their liberty are not something that they view positively, and that's why they don't want to go back to Afghanistan. Those who are already living.
That was exactly the reason when you already in your take talked about that it was uncalled for on the part of the United Nations to not have invited the Afghan Taliban in the first meeting of this Doha format. There was a statement by Ms. Amina Muhammad at that particular time, the Vice United Nations Secretary General, who talked about taking baby steps that could find those baby steps to put us back on the pathway to recognition, to which there came a criticism by the coalition of Afghan women's groups, which said that they were outraged that any country would consider formal ties because of the record of the government that says its handling of women's rights is an internal social issue. What do you say about that?
Jawad, you have to hold the bull by the horns. United Nations was wrong to exclude Taliban. If they want women's rights and if they want other human rights to be upheld, they have to talk to the government of the day. And you like it or not, Taliban are ruling the country. Yes, they are not doing the things as per our aspirations, and they say our own interpretation of the Islamic Sharia law. But how can you bring them to negotiating table and ask them to be more inclusive if they are not invited to the talks? So United Nations was not justified in excluding them.
Your point. Right, your point is well taken. I've received your point well. Mr. Sherzai, you already talked about, as per your understanding, that it was unfair on the part of the international community to not have given that international recognition to the Afghan Taliban. Now, why would the international community consider giving that international recognition before all those conditions which the Afghan Taliban themselves promised to fulfill in the form of that international instrument that is known as Doha Peace Accord, not allowing the Afghan soil to be used for terrorist activities, also upholding the human rights, and also forming the inclusive government over there?
Well,
so shouldn't they have fulfilled the promises first and would have looked forward to that recognition naturally?
well, my own opinion is that unless you bring the Afghans into the international community's lab, you know, they remain independent and you cannot force them. The only way that the United Nations can force a government is when it is a member of the United Nations and it is a recognized government. Unless you recognize them, you don't extend recognition and you ask for all those things. These things can be asked once you give them the recognition. So, we are asking that they first should obey all those conditions and then will be recognized. I think it is too much to ask from the Afghans.
Let me tell you. Please go ahead.
Secondly, you talked about the refugees that we are having here, that why they are not going back. Well, the reason is not that they feel now more secure. I know lots of Afghans who are my friends who have gone and they are very happy, but most of the Afghan here, they are doing lots of businesses in Pakistan. And the kind of opportunities that they have here, I think it is not possible now for the time being that they should shift all their businesses and to Afghanistan. Therefore, the people, and as Janjua Sahab rightly said,
as you already mentioned,
that you know, there are some issues like the girls' education. Well, of course, all those people who are grown up here and they are studying in different educational institutions, why at this particular point of time that they have not completed their education, they should return back to Afghanistan where there is a ban on the higher education of the women. So, that is reason, not that the Afghan government cannot accommodate their own nationals. I think now they are in a position to accept them, and but the problem is, as I said, that they are all Afghanis. If you see, even in Islamabad, they are running lots of businesses. You go anywhere, so they don't find that kind of opportunities right now in Afghanistan. It will take some time for the Taliban government to stabilize before we ask them that you should take back all your Afghans.
Well, that's a very different aspect. But when it comes to the approach of the Afghan Taliban, we saw the statements coming at that time. They were objecting to and asking Pakistani authorities to reconsider sending those illegal refugees back into Afghanistan. My question is, if they claim that their economy is thriving better and the security situation within Afghanistan is improved, I understand that very point. Those people who have got their businesses established over here, have got that very lucrative business environment to run their businesses more efficiently here in Pakistan, we understand their reason of not relocating back to Afghanistan. What about that approach of the Afghan Taliban of not accepting them back?
Well, I think it is because of the demand of the Afghans who are settled here, that at this point of time they cannot disrupt all their businesses and return back. But by the end of the day, let me tell you, Afghans are Afghans wherever they are. Where they are in Pakistan, okay, or they are in Germany, they are Afghans and they are very loyal to their country and their government. And it is not me or Janjua Sahab that we are saying that the security situation or the economic conditions in Afghanistan are much better. It is the entire world who is saying that, and they are showing concrete results of their economy and as well as of their security. For the last 1 year, there has hardly been any crime in Afghanistan, throughout Afghanistan.
Right.
So, what you mean by security? Security is this, that there is 100% security in Afghanistan. So, the problems are that the pressure from the Afghans who are settled here, that for the time being they cannot leave all their businesses in Pakistan and return to Afghanistan. Because of that pressure, the Taliban are putting pressure on Afghanistan not to repatriate those Afghans.
But they have also been found in terrorist activities over there.
Well, terrorists are terrorists everywhere. Terrorists are there in United States, terrorists are there in UK, terrorists are there all over the world. The problem is that we should keep our own house in order. We have, mashallah, quite big security contingent on the borders, and I think we should take care
already
of
undertaken gigantic exercises.
We should take care of our security problems. Secondly,
as far as
that
within the territory of ISIL is concerned,
we should engage Afghanistan in a positive manner.
Positive in a diplomatic way. That is what you are saying. We should be putting our house in order. We have seen those gigantic exercises on a part of, as you mentioned, we've got that security contingent, a huge one, and they have ensured the security. They have already been successful in carrying out grand operations like Operation Zarbe Azb, Operation Raddul Fasad. Just a couple of days before, there was a decision by the authorities in order to intensify those IBOs which are already being conducted here in Pakistan, in order to eliminate those remnants here. But the question is, what about that cross-border infiltration? We talk about that Basham attack that happened on 26th of March. Clearly Afghan nationals were involved, found in that terrorist attack. Can't be taken up lightly because they targeted the Chinese nationals in that. The vehicles that was used in that terrorist attack was also brought in here in Pakistan through that particular across the border. So these are the matter of concerns. That's why Pakistan keep on raising this particular point at the international fora and keep on urging the Afghan authorities to engage in a diplomatic way and to take concrete action against that absolute red line for Pakistan that is known as Banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. Let me take this particular point to Mr. Malik. Mr. Malik, now recognition first, or those promises first which the Afghan Taliban made themselves in the Doha peace agreement, shouldn't they have fulfilled those first, then would have looked forward to that recognition?
Yes, diplomacy is nothing but, give and take for a mutually agreed, kind of arrangement. But before I answer your question, I would like to give a comment on the ongoing discussion by Ambassador Saab and Mr. Janjua. You see, the people that we were wanting to, and we tried, partially to repatriate back to Afghanistan, they were illegal immigrants.
Illegal immigrants.
In Pakistan, there are three categories of Afghan. One are refugees who came in as refugee status. At that time, we were sponsored by UN and other agencies to support them, which slowly and gradually diminished. And then there are people who were born here in last 4 decades. And the third category, which is illegal. So this time around, we were only trying to repatriate those illegal. As far as the first two categories are concerned, in foreseeable future, they would not like to go back to Afghanistan because they have better job opportunities here, they have health care system available to them, they have education for male as well as females, and remarkable opportunities here. Afghanistan, although we see the positive trends, there is a an impression of security, but it is a relative term in my opinion. You don't have that kind of security all over Afghanistan, and economic activities have triggered, but let us give them some time and let world assess independently in over few years that what economic growth is coming up and what opportunities are being provided to Afghan people.
If their economy, I'm surprised and I am curious to understand if their economy is thriving so better. Then the UN says that around 7 billion have been provided for humanitarian assistance, yet Afghanistan remains beset by massive poverty. Now, if the economy is so better there in Afghanistan, why would the US have to provide such a huge sum of money in terms of aid to Afghanistan? And then why would such a huge chunk of masses be set by extreme poverty?
Just last winters, we sitting in the same studios, we were contemplating that there is a human crisis in Afghanistan. I have myself been part of an effort wherein we sent the medicines and healthcare equipment from Pakistan to Afghanistan purely on humanitarian grounds. So that is why some people from across the world, they were trying to help them. I don't think so. It will be too early to conclude that economy is fast growing or this is a sustainable model. It all depends what kind of trade they have, what kind of development is going on, because if we have to see it in the context of what word and the coalition which had tried to fight them for 2 decades, what they have done. If the ROCs were established as promised post 9/11, I think there would have been opportunities. By now we would have seen a continuous upward trend there, and the world would have been better for the region. But still, coming back to your original question, I think we have to give them a chance, but retaining are all options.
Okay, Mr. Sherzai has mentioned another fact about Afghanistan under the Taliban. The crime rate, if I got it correctly, is 0. The security situation is improved. Okay, let it take that way. Okay. If the security situation is improved, there is 0 crime rate within Afghanistan. That shows that there is a complete writ of the Afghan Taliban there in Afghanistan. They don't allow any sort of crime to happen over there. But at the cost of what? Those militant outfits that got safe havens over there, and while the Afghan Taliban are improving the security and safety situation within the territory of Afghanistan, the Afghan soil poses a threat in the form of the terrorist groups and militant outfits to its neighboring countries, especially Pakistan with TTP safe havens over there.
Yes, that is a paradox. As far as security for normal people, yes, because security situation or low crime rate, it is a direct manifestation of quick dispensation of justice. They have been doing that in their first regime as well. But it's not only Pakistan, although Pakistan is the sole victim, but they are harboring people who have problems with, who are creating problem of terrorism for Iran, for China. So it's not only the matter of capacity building, having capacity to deal with them, it is the intent also. Because if you see, ultimately their thought process and their philosophy to deal with issues like this, it is common, be it Taliban or TTP.
Your point, Mr. Janjua, I'll come to you to take your understanding regarding this particular situation, ironic situation, dubbed as paradoxic as far as Mr. Ijaz Malik is concerned, when there is a security situation improved with 0 crime rate within Afghanistan, but terrorist and militant outfits taking safe haven to pose that threat to the neighboring countries. Now, Mr. Ijaz Malik, putting the house in order. Now, we've talked about what is happening as that particular threat from across the border. Putting the house in order, we've seen, as Mr. Sherzai has highlighted this particular fact, we know for a fact that Pakistani security forces and law enforcement agencies for the last 2 decades of war on terror and subsequently after the international troops withdrawal, there have been intensified IBOs. Now the government authorities have decided to go for more reinvigorated, re-energized vision, istehkam Pakistan. Now that particular vision is again another manifestation of the determination of the Pakistani authorities. to set the house in order to hunt down those remnants which have been left. What's your understanding? Do you agree what Mr. Sherzai had already put in?
Obviously, as far as putting our own house in order, that should be priority of any government in Islamabad. But just if my own house is not in order, does it allow you to break into my house? Absolutely. The answer is
absolutely
no.
not.
Exactly. So while we are facing our own challenges of economic issues, political instability, and so many other things, we have to look after our sovereignty, and we cannot allow anybody because this issue has linkages. It doesn't end with TTP being harbored by Afghan Taliban. It has its linkages to India, who are continuously funding and supporting terrorism against us. And as far as the CPEC and instability and terrorism in Balochistan is concerned, there are even apparently other countries which are apparently our friends, but they do not want a stable Balochistan and these areas surrounding the CPEC route. So it is a very complex situation, and I think Pakistan must exercise all options available, because for us this is our own matter of our own life and death.
Mr. Janjua, now Mr. Sherzai says that the crime rate in Afghanistan under Taliban is zero, the security situation is improved there. That is what we have also seen through the statements of the Afghan de facto authorities, statements coming back and forth of the improved situation over there. But we have also seen the terrorist outfits and militant outfits using Afghan soil to carry out those cross-border terrorist activities, particularly the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan here in Pakistan, with that irrefutable evidence on a number of occasions by the Pakistani authorities shared with the Afghan authorities. Isn't it ironic to claim an improved security situation within Afghanistan but not having that control over those, or not being able to take that decisive action against those terrorist outfits?
Jawad, the two things are different. Improved security situation and low crime rate. The reason for low crime rate is because Taliban have a very authoritarian way of ruling, and they have demonstrated in their government in the 90s as well that anybody who's involved in petty crime or those crimes like robbery or assault or murder, they are taken to task in a very, very hardliner way by the government. So that scares people away from committing crime. But that does not mean that Afghan security situation has improved to the extent whereby lawlessness has been eradicated, because those separatist groups like Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan or ISK, ISKP and the likes of them still have safe havens inside Afghanistan. And the reason there are safe havens inside Afghanistan is because Afghan society or even the Taliban themselves, they have pockets, their warlords have their own pockets where they are the sole leaders of the area or rulers of the area, and the central government has limited control over them. So that's why those pockets of resistance, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and similar groups are operating from those areas, and the central government in Kabul has no control or limited control over them. And I have no doubts, as the Air Marshal AVM Saab was also saying, we must remember that even if in the Basham attack there were involvement of Afghans, do you think it's difficult for RAW to buy people inside Afghanistan or buy Afghan nationals to conduct those heinous crimes in Pakistan, especially on the CPEC route, especially in Gilgit-Baltistan area, specifically to undermine Pakistan's efforts along with China? Now, because of that, The Chinese are skeptical about Pakistan and the security situation in Pakistan. Even last week or so, when the Chinese minister came, they categorically emphasized about the security situation. So who's the beneficiary of this? Indians, those who want Pakistan's situation to continuously remain uncertain. Now Indians can use Afghans, Indians can use Iranis or anybody. The situation in Balochistan, I have no qualms about it. I have no doubts about it. Wherever there is unrest in Pakistan or terrorism in Pakistan, whether it is being fronted by Afghans, it is at the behest of the Indians. And we all know Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan has been funded by the Indians, is being continuously funded by the Indians. So we can't say just because there is low crime rate in Afghanistan, there are no sanctuaries in Afghanistan. There are sanctuaries and they're continuously operating from there, and Indians have their hand dirty in terms of supporting and financing those Taliban, those elements, the terrorist elements, to create unrest in Pakistan. So that's why.
Right. So that particular sticking point of the issue of recognition, or the Taliban actually so aspire for. So do you think it could have been an incentive on the part of the international community, could have given the recognition first, then would have expected the Afghan Taliban perhaps to fulfill all those promises that they made in the Doha peace deal?
I think recognition is a way to bring them on board on the negotiating table. Why should the international community shy away from recognizing the Taliban who are running the government? But I am going to say something which...
But the question is, doesn't that raise a natural question? The Afghan Taliban, are those the sole true representative of the entire spectrum within Afghanistan? Aren't there other stakeholders also which should be included, and that is the promise that the Afghan Taliban made in the Doha peace deal, to have that inclusive government over there?
Yes, but even if not the entire spectrum, they are commanding a majority of Afghan population. And by the way, when the international community says we are not going to recognize them, why then the international community, including the Americans, $45 million every now and then coming from the Americans to the Afghans, why are they funding them? If they don't want to recognize them, they should not give them the money. So these are the dual standards of the international community also. On one hand, they say we are not going to recognize them. On the other hand, they are giving them the money. So that's something which is beyond understanding. The international community must come on board and recognize them, and then they will at least be under pressure. The Afghans or the Taliban will be under pressure to bow in on the international demands. Now, they are justified when they say, well, you don't recognize us, we are not going to listen to your demands. So once they are recognized, they are in the United Nations, they are represented, so at least the international community can demand certain things from them, certain concessions that the Afghan Taliban are not giving to the international community or to the world in terms of human rights. First and foremost, the most burning point for the international community is the human rights. So that's the only way to ensure that is by making it inclusive. And so
would that guarantee that once given the recognition, presumably if they are given the recognition, they are going to fulfill those promises they had already made? Is there going to be any guarantee of that subsequently?
I'm not very optimistic that even after recognition, they are going to fulfill all the demands. They can go and say, well, this is our country, this is run by our rules, so this is the Sharia law that they say, as per the Sharia law, we can do certain things and we cannot do certain things. So there is no guarantee that the Afghans will become fully compliant, but they will still give some concessions in reward for recognition. So let's not miss that.
Right, your point is well taken. Unfortunately, we're short of time. There are a lot of other aspects that need to be discussed, but we have seen a continuous expression of support by the US as far as Pakistan's counter-terrorism measures are concerned. Again, a new statement has come forth by State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller, also saying again that Pakistan is supported by the US as far as its counterterrorism campaign is concerned. We see that Pakistani authorities have decided to intensify already going IBOs a couple of days before. How should Pakistan be looking forward to or expecting that support which has repeatedly been expressed by the US in countering terrorism here?
Jawad, I don't know because I can't see your picture, so I don't know if you're talking to me or you've put this question to another.
Question is for you. The support the US expresses for Pakistan in the counter-terrorism measures, a new statement by Matthew Miller again expressing support for Pakistan's counter-terrorism measures. How should Pakistan be expecting? What could be the manifestation of that support by the US towards Pakistan?
I think it's a good gesture by the US government, by the State Department, to say that we support Pakistan's counter-terrorism efforts. But there is continuous dichotomy in the US action. So this is just a lip service in my view, although I should look at it positively, but it's lip service because at the back end, Pakistan, what it's been hoping from the US government or from the US administration has not been happening in that sense. So this lip service is purely or merely just to tell the world that we are with Pakistan, standing with Pakistan. The fact remains they are not the way they used to be. So I don't see any tangible results of this statement coming in the near future, to be honest.
So on Skype, thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. We were joined in the studio by Mr. Umar Khan Ali Sherzai, former ambassador. Mr. Sherzai, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show. Mr. Air Vice Marshal, retired Ijaz Malik, senior analyst, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Ijaz Malik, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.